Greetings and salutations. I'm Pat626 and I am a professional Fanby. This is the inaugural show of it, and let me tell you kind of what you're in for, what you have signed up for here. I am a host of a couple of different radio shows, and I love music and other forms of media, and so I've decided to just kind of talk about it, do a deep dive, do some reviewing, but also some analysis of my favorite stuff, mostly music. And so tonight we'll be tackling Escape from Planet Devours. This is going to be mostly unscripted because that's just kind of the way I am. I just like to talk a little bit more casually. We'll see how that goes. But thank you for joining me. So let's go ahead and fire up some selections tonight. I'm not going to be playing the whole album, but I will be playing some of my personal favorite or most interesting selections from Escape from Planet Devours. I'll get back to that intro in just a second, but let's talk about Devours for a moment. Devours is a Canadian band, Vancouver. Hasn't seen a whole lot of blowing up outside of Vancouver, and that's actually one of the reasons why I'm doing this tonight, because I started following Devours with his previous album, Iconoclast. Loved it to death, but he's definitely an odd duck. He's a musician that can do a lot of weird synthy things and can be in your face quite a bit, especially lyrically. And some people don't know what to do with that, and so a lot of people have been sleeping on Devours, and I think that is just a crime. This album specifically was written mostly during the pandemic, so as you can tell from the beginning lyrics, 12 months out, and then the next part coming up here, I've never been more lost in my life than I am right now. And that is a level of introspection that we have all been forced into. And that's kind of what I meant about the intro there, how I was going to get back to that, is that almost jackhammering synth that starts us off. Not only is it a good way to start a record, but it kind of is just driving home just how noisy and how awful being alone and being forced to kind of sit in our own brains has been, as we've been cut off from most people during the pandemic. Especially since, as we're going to see through this, there's also a lot of doubt in one's place in the music industry, and also dealing with very difficult and toxic relationships. That's a bad thing to have happening when you can't leave your house and hang out with people the way you used to. So that's something that's going to permeate a lot of this album, but really just goes out of the gate with it right here. The other thing that you'll notice, especially during the chorus, is Devours his love of extending a hook just a little bit farther than most people would. So, for instance, in this case, posing the question, if misery loves company, why I'm alone? And most artists would just drop it on the why am I alone and just let it go. And as you'll see right here, now that he's got us hooked in, he's just going to take us for a ride. We're just going to start floating away. And that's one of the signature things that I think identifies his sound, is just how he's not letting it go, how he starts raising it up until it's become a completely different hook than where it started. And I'm okay with that. Also, man loves to just drop out everything. So there goes the music. There's a good breakdown. The man knows how to write a synth-pop club hit. Interesting thing about this, though, is that this isn't, in my opinion, like the club hit of the album, and that's because, on purpose, I think there's a kick drum missing in here. You heard it in the verses, and you'll hear it again a little bit here. Is that a lot of songs like this will give us kick on the first, second, third, and fourth beat. He's only giving it on the first and third. So there's this like feeling of wanting to move forward and not being able to move forward, which I think is very intentional, because there's just this feeling almost of being trapped. I'm going to talk about this a lot more as this goes on, but I feel like this album is almost the stages of grief, but for trauma. And that'll make more sense as it goes on, but quickly, I feel like you're grieving when you're traumatized because you're grieving who you could have been, who you were, what opportunities were stolen from you. So we're going to see the stages of grief here in this song and in this album. I feel like we're mostly in the area of denial at first. And of course, the stages of grief don't go in any specific order no matter what everyone tells you. And they definitely don't go in any specific order in this album. But they're all there. So that was Poltergeist, the first track on the album. This is Novis Got Heat. And this is where we start to dive into the analysis. And I start to get just a little bit frustrated with Devours, because I went looking for, okay, why is this song called Novis Got Heat? It's not mentioned in there at all. Like, is it a reference to something? So I started searching. And God damn it. It's Showgirls. It's a scene from Showgirls. Yeah, that incredibly, like, poorly acted, just schlockfest that ruined Paul Verhoeven's career, but also, for a variety of reasons, has become a camp classic at this point, a campy B-movie cult hit, especially in the gay community. So it kind of makes sense that it would be involved with this. But once I actually saw the scene, and yeah, I had to watch Showgirls because of you, Devours. Like, thank you very much. So the scene involves the exotic dancer Nomi, who's been trying to break it in business and is consistently being kind of stonewalled by her rival, Crystal. She manages to get into it by banging the person who runs the club and Crystal's boyfriend. And so Novis Got Heat is the scene where she gets that job, and the Crystal is like, hey, I know, did you fuck her? And boyfriend is like, are you jealous, or was she gotten there first? What? And that's a lot of what's going on here too, and it makes more sense because really he's the skeezy one. He's the skeezy bastard in that, but they're fighting with each other. Nomi and Crystal are fighting amongst themselves, and it's kind of that same thing that's happening here, where the narrator is starting to be aware of the problems in the relationship, but then the chorus, which is just an incredible riff. When I'm strong enough to leave you, I will. Blaming himself for still being stuck in this abusive relationship. And so there's that, even as anger is starting to kind of get in there, there's still a lot of self-doubt, like, no, this is my fault. And that's something that I don't think I would have fully picked up on if I hadn't watched Showgirls. So thanks, Devours. So then we've got this track here, which is Exposure. And this was one of the first singles that I heard on this one, but it also brings me to my gratuitous personal connection, which is going to happen a lot in this series. So I talked about the stages of grief and trauma and depression. There is this thing that happens when ground has completely dropped out from under you. And I know this because in 2018, I had what I like to refer to as the trauma turducken. I lost my mother. Pretty much every romantic relationship that I was involved in just crumbled to dust. I outed several abusers. It was a mess. And I ended up just kind of trying to put one foot in front of the other again. And that is this song here. I feel a tremendous connection with what I think is one of the first hopeful songs on the album. This is where we start seeing Devours kind of pull himself out of it. You know, I'm sick and I'm tired of being the victim and of being afraid of falling in love. So first of all, the concept of not being a victim is something you're going to hear a lot on this record. This feeling of, okay, you know, even though this happened to me, I'm not going to be defined by it. I am going to be more than this. It's a mental space that I got into where I was like, I'm not going to be a victim, I'm going to be a survivor. And so this whole feeling of being sick and tired of being depressed, of feeling like a victim, being ruled by fear, being that spite and that anger and that's just feeling of sick and being tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired is what got me out of that spiral. And so this slow dance jam is absolutely capturing that feeling in a way that I hadn't heard before. So this song is the one that really kind of gripped me. I was like, okay, yeah, no, this album's gonna be great. I'm gonna thoroughly enjoy this, and I'm gonna relate to it in a way I haven't before. And that part of that is because Devours is just so good at being blunt and in your face. This is how I feel, and it's something that I think can turn off some people, but for those of us that really need someone to empathize with us, that have suffered in that way, it's very helpful to have someone come along and say, yeah, I am sick of this. Are you sick of this? Are we going to be victims anymore? No. Like, thank you for that, honestly, Devours. And thank you for doing it in a way that I can also, you know, kind of groove to it as well. And so the thing is, though, is when you get very blunt about things, sometimes you're not sure how to swallow that. And that kind of comes up with this next song here, which would be Yoshis Revenge. This is probably like, this is Devours' other main style, this chiptune, just very out there, what the fuck is going on here in music. And this is probably like the most polarizing sound that he has. It happens in a few places on this album, but especially this song right here is, I think, going to be the most polarizing track. But I really feel like people should give it a chance because of just how blunt it is. But I'll tell you what, it's called Yoshis Revenge, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what that had to do with anything. And so then I just decided, all right, well, I need to get a picture of Yoshi to put up on the screen. And so I saw this meme, all right, and suddenly it made sense with the song, because I don't think that Devours was looking at this specific picture when he made this song, but it's the common concept of Yoshi. Anyone who's played a lot of Super Mario World knows that you can use Yoshi to then bounce off of him to get up to places you couldn't before, often sending him off to his death. And I suddenly realized, wait a minute, here's this song where we have officially moved to anger in the stages of grief. This guy's just like, you know, no, this is your fault. I gave you head, I gave you space, but I will never compete with your true love, drugs in this case, and just lashing out at him. You need to adapt. You need to grow. Your misogyny is so thinly fucking veiled. So it kind of gives us this feeling of like, oh, I have been lifting you up. I have been carrying you, and you've just been abandoning me. And suddenly it makes so much sense to me, and I didn't even get that until like 10 hours ago when I was putting the pictures for this whole thing together. I hope I'm right. If I'm not, well, that's what being a fan is all about. But regardless, I recommend checking out the video for this, because it is the most strange thing you will watch today, probably. And now we get to the part of the album that made me realize not only did I love this album, but it was probably going to be my favorite album of the year, or at least in my top 10. Again, absolutely brutal start to it, and pleased to meet you. Hand me the news. I don't know if Devours is a millennial, but that is some millennial fucking humor there. Followed by I'm old, gay, fat, and depressed. How the fuck are you? Like, this is the point where, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna get out there. I'm just gonna be me. And we're moving from anger and into bargaining, and just trying desperately to again, refusing to live like a victim. And that's actually the hook in this song, taking what sounds like a suicidal anthem. I refuse to live, being repeated over and over and over again until we get into that riding hook that I talked about at the beginning. Rises up and then refuse to live my life as a victim. And suddenly it's another just hopeful song, but now instead of being a slow dance jam, this is something you can thrash around to in a club, just screaming it at the top of your lungs. Like, and oh my god, this song is so brutally gay, and I love it. Like, this is domino dancing, but instead of two hunks like wrestling homoerotic style on a beach into the waves, this is like a straight up brawl in the basement of a sushi restaurant that desperately wants to be a steady goth club. Like, this thing is just so visceral and so powerful, and I cannot help but dance around with it, scream around with it. I love it to death. And this is not going to leave my... As soon as club sets happen again, I'm going to keep this in there, because, dear God, it's just so perfect. And like, it twists this joke into of suicidal millennial humor into a concept of recovery. And I don't know, like, considering that this is the album that, written during a pandemic, dealing with relationship fallout, dealing with questioning his place in the music industry, the fact that Devours can give us all those emotions but also give us hope, that's unbelievable to me. Like, I don't know where he gets this from, but this song alone was actually the reason I decided to do Professional Fanby, because I wanted to make sure that people knew this album and this song existed. So, that said, it wasn't the full, like, highlight of the album for me. This is the song Two Kids, and I had heard this song before. He actually released it as a single, but I hadn't heard it in context with the rest of the album. It specifically comes right after right after Feckless Abandon, which was the previous song. We go from Yoshis Revenge, this just like, man, fuck you, to, hey, I refuse to live as a victim like this. I'm going to move on, goddammit. And then to this incredibly vulnerable song of sharing feelings of love and heartbreak. And so this became the Highlander moment of the album for me. Because, it's the part where I want to kill Devours and steal his power. Like, it's such a tender, beautiful song on its own. But in the context of the album, like right after that high-octane give no fucks jam, suddenly we're experiencing a different level of vulnerability. Instead of it in your face, it's hey, this is me. Please take care. Please. We've gone from like blatant lyrics to I was lightning in your arms through a cloud of dust, which is probably some of the best imagery of the year. Like, you went shout defiance, you made me shout out defiance, and then in the very next song, you managed to make me cry. No one should have that much power, Devours. No one. Like, and that, like, it's true that things on this album, because he's going through so many styles, it's very unlikely that the entirety of the album is going to appeal to a lot of people, but I think there's going to be enough of the album that will appeal to enough people. And like, I have to recognize the amount of talent that goes behind being able to hit my emotions in so many places, from sadness to depression to anger to hope, and that's kind of what makes this an album that I feel like everyone needs to listen to at least once. At least give the whole thing a listen and pick some favorite tracks. I don't think you'll be able to abandon it completely. I can't abandon it at all. But that's definitely the part that really got to me. And the thing is that's not even like the end of the album. I'm reaching the end of my discussion of the album, because let's face it, there's only so long I can ramble. But I think you've kind of gotten my point, that this isn't just really good synth pop, but it's very personal. And as someone that has gone through a lot of trauma and recently come out of a big depressive episode, it matters to me. So this is the last song on the album, Death is a B-Side, and something that I noticed when I was really sitting down and giving a close listen to do this review is that kick drum in the background, just that little quiet kick drum and other synth drums that are in it, is the exact same jackhammer that was at the beginning of the album. It's pretty much the same beat that we got from that blaring synth at the beginning of the album on Poltergeist. And now it's just kind of muted. It's in the background. It's outside. And so it kind of gives me that feeling that it's all still happening. Like, all of the bullshit that has caused the introspection of this record is still out there. It's still there. It doesn't go away overnight. It doesn't go away in a year. It maybe never fully goes away. But now there's this softness, because because while he's been withdrawn into himself and introspecting, he's kind of realized what he wants, and we get that in this chorus. This sense of deliberateness, that he just wants to have fun. He just is making this conscious choice to do something different with everything that has been happening to him. He's making definite, if not mainstream, decisions throughout this too. Like, for instance, cover the yard with gasoline, say goodbye to the American dream, shut the world out and pretend that I'm young. Just this feeling of, I'm just going to do this for me now. And then he's inviting another person with him. Like, hey, remember when we felt more alive? Wasn't that great? Maybe again? Maybe we can do that again? Fuck the gym, let's get fat together. Let's stop worrying about what we could be. Instead of grieving about what he's lost, like, all right, I am accepting what I am and going for what I could be instead. It's making decisions in the face of losing control. Not all of the decisions are healthy even. I do not recommend pouring gasoline on your yard or later in the song on your house. But it's progress in terms of self-acceptance. Let them believe our lives are coming undone. Like, who cares? Let them believe. But we will live for ourselves. And so again, there's this spark of hope that's coming through. Like, and it hasn't erased any of the other emotions that you felt, but it's still a spark of hope that's there. All right? Death is a B-side, is the name of the song. It's a B-side. It's not what we should be focusing on. The single is life. And so we keep on living, no matter how well that single sells. And that's kind of an important thing to think about for this song too, because Devours has said that he considered quitting music and he made this album instead. And I think that's such a big deal. So yeah, that kind of ends the album on this feeling of, I've been focusing on the wrong things. I've been focusing on, should I do this? And instead it's just, I am doing this. So yeah, I think that you got the idea that I like this album a great deal, and hopefully you can give it a shot. So thanks for listening. I am Pat626, the professional Fanby, and I'm going to try and do this show more often. And if you're watching this live, actually stick around, because I'll also be talking a little bit after the show's over, just to see what you thought of it. But yeah, enjoy your music listening, folks.